Hello, my dear church boys, and welcome back to yet another episode of Saint Robert's Daygame podcast. And in this podcast episode, I am chatting with Joe. Joe is almost in his 50s, but he's only daygaming girls in his 20s. He has 25 years of experience chatting up girls. He has lived in Daygames in many cities in Europe and in US and Canada. And currently, he's living and daygaming in Canada. Joe is one of the newest deacons in our Daygame Church Telegram group chat. Deacons are guys who have at least 30 daygame lists who are giving very solid, very good advice to other new daygamers and in general are helping to keep the chat a healthy environment. If you want to join our group chat, the link to join is in the description. And also you will hear him talk about learning from my texting advice, learning from my texting course. If you want to go through the same texting course for free, you can do so on daygamecourses.com. And before we jump into this podcast episode, a few updates about where I am, what's up, coaching spots, etc. I'm in Lima, Peru on my way to Mexico where I'm going to be coaching a student, and mid-April I am going back to Europe. I'm coaching a guy in Portugal in the last week of April, and we'll have one more coaching spot there in the first week of May. After that, I'm going to be spending the summer in Riga, Latvia and several second-tier cities in Poland, and I will have 2 coaching spots in each of the places I go to. So if you want to open your daygame season in a nice city on a beach that's full with beautiful local girls, Erasmus students and tourists from all over Europe and the world in general, or learn daygame in former Soviet Union in different places like Riga, Latvia, or several second-tier cities in Poland where you will not see as many daygamers as in Warsaw, then link to find out more about how coaching me usually works is in the description. You can find out everything there, fill the form at the bottom of the page, and I'll get back to you with all the information, the cities, the dates, the prices, etc. And if everything sounds good, we'll jump on a short WhatsApp call so you can ask any questions you have about coaching with me to understand if it's a good idea for you. And I will have a few questions for you to get to know you a little bit, to understand what's the best way I can help you. And now, let's jump in to the conversation with Joe. When we were preparing to start recording, you asked me, hey, are you monetized? Is there like some shit I shouldn't say? What about swearing? And I said, listen, you can say whatever the hell you want as long as you're not being like, not saying shit that's racist, Nazi, or just disrespectful to women. And you actually shared a very interesting fact about you, with the fact that makes you different from a lot of daygamers in a way, and that has shaped your attitude towards women, I assume.
Yeah, so I have 3 sisters, and I noticed a lot of guys who were very bitter and misogynistic. The problem is that they pedestalize women, and then when they realize it's just people like you and me, it's when they become really misogynistic. But when you have 3 sisters, it's different because you see them, you see them fart, you see them, their shit smell. So it's you don't put them on a pedestal, so you don't take them down later when you realize they're real people. So you start from a more healthy position, I think.
That's an interesting idea. I had never thought about it from that perspective. I thought you were gonna say like, "Oh, that's why I respect women," and blah blah blah. And you're just like, no, like, you know what their shit smells. So like, you're not pedestalizing them. Great. Let's maybe start with some super basic background info, because we've chatted and we've done a coaching call, and I've seen you give a lot of good advice in the chat. But let's kind of start with some background info, because I just asked, hey, you're like 50 what? And then you said, no, I'm not even 50. Fuck you, St. Robert, you're a piece of shit. So let's start with some background info on you. Where are you from? How old are you? And stuff like that.
So I'm 47, born in 75. I was raised pretty much my whole life in Canada, but I'm originally from Northern Africa, from a Muslim Arabic country. And the most important thing I would say in my background is I spent 2 years in Italy and then 3 years in France before I moved to Canada. So the reason I think it's interesting is that in those Latin countries, Daygame existed way before the London Daygame Hall. So the idea of approaching women on the street, is part of the culture. Even if it's a small, tiny minority of people who do it, it's still part of the culture.
Yeah, I
Uh,
remember we had a very cool guy in our chat. He was a deacon, but we had some misunderstanding, and he left the chat. And he was this Italian guy, a friend of mine who we traveled with, and he told, I think he shared this one of the stories, how he was living in some Rimini. In Rimini, is that like it might be like some small party place or something like that. I have no idea, but I think he said he lived in Rimini, and when he was young, he and his buddies during the summer, because it was so full with tourists who went there to party, they had like a competition who would get more points, and you would get a point for each girl you'll sleep with, but vaginal sex would be a point, oral sex would be a point, and anal would be a point. So, and they had this crazy competition throughout the summer, and so I assume some hardcore pickup stuff has been going on for Italy, in Italy for years.
well,
But I interrupted you.
no, no. I mean, they say Latin lover. They don't say Chinese lover. And then Pepe Le Pew. Pepe
No.
Le Pew. Pepe
Oh,
Le
that
Pew is
that
a
that 60-year-old.
Oh, it's this skunk that hits on women. It's a Bugs Bunny. I think it's a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It's this little skunk. He hits on a woman, and he's French. He's not German. Like I can't imagine a German Pepe Le Pew. So my point being is, it's really part of the culture, especially the French, because I was raised in Italian French, and they pride themselves in being able to talk to women, even if I think it's a big cliche. Not like a lot of French guys are not able to do that, but point is, I was aware of guys picking up girls in the street, in my teenage years. I knew it was possible, and I read books about it. It was not technical books, but it was books about guys, detailing their life stories about like how they would pick up women. So the reason I started doing it by myself is I knew it was possible. And yeah, so that's the background story. I discovered the community, I think in 2018, and I was doing it for close to 20 years at the time, without even knowing without even knowing there was a name about the London Daygame Hall. So yeah, so that's why I thought mentioning I was raised partly in France and entirely in French is an important bit of information.
So you have 25 years of experience with that game.
Yeah, more or less, because I had a lot of long-term relationships when it stopped completely. Some relationships were open relationships, but I had one in particular that was a 7-year relationship. We broke up, a few times in between, but during those 7 years, most of the time I wouldn't do day games. So, it's not 25 straight years. And then the other thing is that I remember the reason I started listening to your channel is I remember one video you said, when guys are starting, they shouldn't pick a girlfriend right away. They should keep doing day game. And I was like, hey, dude, I've been doing this for 25 years. Like, I do day game during the summer, and then I pick a girlfriend. And they stop completely for like 6, 7 months, and then rinse and repeat. So, that has been my story for 25 years. So in those 25 years, I don't think I day game like half of the time. Like a lot of time where I was in relationship.
Yeah. I think I really think that kind of living a little bit in Italy and in France, if those places have this culture, I think it really adds to kind of it's a big factor. Like I think it's such a big influence, and I think it's amazing that you started that so early, like 25 years ago. I don't know anyone who has been day gaming for 25 years. Do you remember how you started?
Oh yeah, I remember absolutely exactly the moment I started. I was working in a part-time job. I was a student, and it was this girl I was hitting on at work, and she had like 3 or 4 guys. I didn't know that at the time, but she was 3 or 4 guys who were suited. So I was definitely not her plan A. And I remember asking her out a couple of times, and one night, she gave us she canceled the plans, and I was really really pissed. So I thought, okay, as soon as I could get out of the work, I'll approach the first cute girl and I'll ask her out. And the funny part is that it was at night. I think it was in, I don't know if it was in summer, but it was, I remember I was wearing a jacket, so it was definitely not in July. And it worked. And my first approach became my girlfriend. And then I stopped because I was in university, so I stopped altogether because I made her my girlfriend for a couple of years, and then university was a good place to get laid because you have a lot of social interaction. So, but still, it was beginner's luck. And so I was 21 years old. I just don't remember if it was 96 or 97 because my birthday is in June, so I can't remember what year it is exactly. But I know I was 21, so I
Okay.
remember exactly that nine. Yeah.
Um, how did you, what did you say? What did you do? What did guys do back then? Or what were you doing in in your conversations back then? Especially on the
So
street, especially on the street.
so this girl, I remember the conversation was I was told BS. I told her I saw her before because we lived in the same street, which happened to be true. And then she was really flattered, and she actually I invited her home like right after the interaction. She accepted. Nothing happened. We didn't even kiss or anything. But I remember thinking, okay, this shit works. But again, it like I entered a relationship with her, and then I tried again a couple of years later, a few sets, and it didn't work. So it's like that was total beginner's luck, but I knew it was possible. I think if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would have kept going. But yeah, it did work. And then what happened next is, as I said, I made her my girlfriend for a couple of years, and then when we broke up, I spent like 9 years in university because I did different programs, did a master's, and then I moved to Netherlands. And with Netherlands, in Netherlands is where I really did day game like for real because I was there for a 3 month internship. I ended up staying 3 years, didn't speak the language, and the women there were exactly my type. So tall, blue eyes, uh, decent boobs, curves. And because I thought I was staying there for 3 months, I thought I got to do something. So I first of all I did a lot of night game, and I approach a lot. I approach a lot, but I was the only influence I had is I was reading some stuff. I didn't read the mystery method, but I was reading about him. So I had a lot of influence from night game advice. So negging stuff like this. It didn't really help, but what really helped is the idea of you got to put the reps in, you got to put the volume before you get some results. So yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. Um, yeah, so the first thing
So,
was mostly
which year was this? Which year was this? When
uh,
did you move to the Netherlands?
I think it was 2003. So that was a
So
while
okay, that's
after.
still 20
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah, no, that was
Okay.
20 years ago. And it was a lot of trial and error. What I did mostly was over how do you say observational stacking, but I didn't really I didn't have a structure at all. I didn't have a structure at all. What I was concentrating the most on was making sure I had a good vibe because that had a huge influence on my sets. Um, but yeah, and then when I read the London Daygame model later, I almost retro engineered. Like I realized what I was doing good and what I was doing bad, and it kind of helped because I knew, okay, this is why it was working. But yeah, it was a lot of try and error, a lot of approaching, and the vibe was the most critical part. Like if I was in a good mood, I was doing great. Oh, sorry, and one thing I wanted to mention that I think sets me apart from the other guys is I noticed a lot of guys in this community have a technical or scientific or business background, and I'm more artistic. So the good thing about being artistic is I'm highly intuitive. So I was For me, striking a conversation and talking BS is it was really easy. So it's I've never understood AA or people having running out of things to say. Those were my biggest strength. So that I think really helped. I think a lot of guys are quite the opposite. They have strong AA. They're very technical. So my opinion is that when you have an artistic mind and are very intuitive, you start from a higher point. But the downside is like you have no structures. It's kind of hard to progress because you improvise a lot. And the guys who are technical with strong AA, in my opinion, it's much harder in the beginning, but once they have a structure, it's a more linear progress. But that's my opinion based on what I observed. But I think you can tell me more because you're a coach, so you've seen more guys than I did.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, kind of the differences between coaching like very technical, very kind of analytical guys and more artistic guys. Um, I think the one thing that makes it a little bit easier for artistic guys is I do think maybe they're able to approach easier and just kind of they don't care about failing that much, so they'll go on chat and they'll have fun just having the conversation. What like even if it's just friendly and it's if it doesn't lead anywhere, but they'll just enjoy this kind of process. And but the thing with them is they do tend to be very friendly. They kind of they fuck up a lot in their storytelling and things like that sometimes because there is no structure behind it. But kind of once they understand the basics, it's I would say for them that they really they have to kind of learn to move away from the friendly vibe and then add a little bit more structure and usually they're fine. The structure part is where they're struggling in the beginning and again structure isn't the end all be all, but it's sort of like part of the process that the guys need to learn. And sometimes they drop it too early, and then they can why didn't I succeed? What the fuck happened? Well, because you dropped it too early. Whereas the very technical guys, some of them, if they are extremely technical, they don't have that. They sometimes don't enjoy the process that they're gonna the process of just chatting with a beautiful girl and having this conversation, even if if it fails and sometimes for them it's a little bit harder to deal with failure. But in the end, the process is the same. Like they get the structure easier, and I would say for the structure guys, the easy part is that they are very good at picking up the structure. And when they figure out, when they get over the AA and start having a decent vibe, which is, like 2 days into coaching usually, and then the second day they're kind of in a very good vibe and structure is starting to flow. That's when shit starts to happen. And for them, it's really like, you just give them something that's proven to work. And as soon as they see it works, they usually have no problems just going out and implementing it and putting in the reps. And that's what makes it easier for them. That they're very, very good at picking up the structure, figuring out what works, and then kind of drilling it, so to say. So it's different for different types, but in the end, I don't think it's easier for one or the other. They just have like slightly different challenges. Okay, so 2023, you are in Netherlands, you're daygaming there, you're doing night game, you're doing day game. Then you discover London Daygame model. Who did you read or what did you watch? What was the first thing that got you into London Daygame model?
Oh no, that was like the London Daygame model that was in 2018 or something. I was doing
Yes.
Daygame for years. I think so. It's hard for me to pinpoint. What I know I discovered before was a guy called Paul Janka. And Paul Janka was not the London Daygame model. He was based in New York. But the reason I started following him is he's the first guy I really saw doing some street approaches. Because I didn't know even it was called Daygame at the time. And the thing I liked about him, because I tried his method of indirect approach, nothing ever worked. Nothing he did worked for me. But the thing I liked about it is initially in the community, there was the strong belief that you could do anything regardless of your looks, your height, and he was tall and handsome. And I thought, okay, this guy I can believe, because the thing is, there are a lot of guys in the community I thought were complete scammers because I was thinking there's no way this guy gets laid. And Paul Janka was really cool. So I thought, okay, his method doesn't work for me because I never was able to do anything serious with indirect approach. But he's cool. He's a cool guy. I like his demeanor. So he's the first one um, I really saw that it was inspiring because the rest of the advice was mostly night game, and night game for me was not. I mean, I did a lot of it, but I was doing good night game when I was with good friends. Was never able to do to get results doing solo night game. That's really not my strength. And then before I discovered the day game community, there were a bunch of videos on YouTube, and the guys were based in London. That was pre Torero or pre daygame.com, but um, a lot of them were doing direct approaches. So I couldn't see the structure because they were not really talking about the structure, but the infields I saw convinced me that okay, some other guys are doing the same thing as me. And again, I focused on vibe most of the time. Like I was not really paying attention to what they said. I was really paying attention as to their non-verbals. So the structure came really really late for me, and yeah, so the structure really came. I think the first guy I read was probably Tom Torero, and I never read anything cover to cover. Like I never read like street. I read parts of it because I was struggling with some parts. So AA for me was never a problem. My biggest struggling was mostly texting, and also the stacking part. I was not always able to stack because it was really depending. So I would be able to come up with something when I was in a good, confident vibe, and then when I wasn't, I was stuck. So I remember when I read the stacking, and then they were focusing on nationalities. That was really something I thought, oh, how come I never thought about this? As I kept stacking about the way they were dressing, their appearance, and it never came to my mind. I could stack about nationality because in Netherlands I was only attracted to blonde, not necessarily blonde, but like tall, blue eyes Dutch girls, and I wouldn't approach the ethnic girls. So for me, approaching based on nationality didn't make sense. So yeah, that's there you have it.
So basically, the first of the London Daygame model guys you saw was Tom Torero. Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, it could have been, yeah, there could have been. The thing is that I don't, as much as I remember my first approach, I don't remember the first time I saw a day game, a London day game model, because I remember seeing videos in London, but I don't think it was called London day game model. It was just called like Street Approach or something like that. So it took me,
There's so many
yeah.
names, man. um, okay, and wait, when did you join our community? Because you joined the chat, what, like a year ago or more? When was that?
I think it was less than that. I think it was this. It was in 2022, so it was this year. It was, yeah, it was definitely. I think it was May or June of this year. We'll have to check, but it's definitely less than a year.
Okay. Have you ever kept stats or anything like that? Like the geeky day gamers, including me. At least I used to when I was kind of learning day game. Not now I don't anymore. But have you
Yeah,
ever done that?
but I did that. I did that when I was in Netherlands. The funny part is I didn't do it the right way. Like so what I was doing is I was ignoring the harsh blowouts because the reason I kept stat initially was like I need to know how many girls I approach before I get a lay. So I was only counting. So if I would approach a girl, it was an instant blowout. I wouldn't count it as an approach because I thought if I count these sets, it's not going to motivate me. I'm going to think I did a set where in fact I didn't do a set. So I was only counting the ones where I was approaching, I was complimenting, and I was at the very least asking for a coffee. So my stats are kind of skewed because of that, because I wasn't counting the real sets. So, but I definitely counted lays, and I definitely counted dates. And I think the first year I didn't really count, or the first couple of months. But then at some point I realized, okay, I need to know how many girls I have to approach before I get a lay, because it would keep me motivated. So yeah, I kept stats, but not the stats the way we should do it. Like I didn't count every single set, like only the ones that
Okay.
where I was able to compliment, at the very least compliment.
Okay, and I understand you've day gamed in quite a few cities. You've done Netherlands. You've done something in it. Did you do something in Italy and France?
No, and France later when I was an adult, but France and Italy was before I moved to Canada, so I was a kid.
Okay,
So Italy an
so
everyday game.
you've done France. You've done Netherlands. Oh, my neighbors are being loud. You've done Canada where you live. You've had some adventures in Barcelona. You've done
Yeah, no,
Amsterdam.
yeah. So I did. So the Netherlands, I did Rotterdam and Amsterdam because I lived there. And then I did Washington D.C. was a total disaster. I didn't find anything interesting because it was mostly a black city, and I'm not attracted to black girls. I'm mostly into white girls, and a lot of them were not in shape. So Washington was a disaster. I did three cities, the three main cities in Canada. I did Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. And I did so Paris and Barcelona was on vacation. I did some day game while I was on vacation, so it was not a day game trip per se. It was like doing some tourist stuff, and on the side I was day gaming, and I did New York City too. So
Wait, you
those
said
were
you
the
did three main cities in Canada,
Canada
Vancouver, Montreal, and
and Toronto, because I live in all
Toronto.
those cities. So I day gamed. I mostly day game in places I lived in. I like the day game. The idea of doing a day game trip. I never done that. I did like vacation where I day gamed, but I never did a dedicated day game trip. So I
But you're
was
going
day
on a
game.
day game trip this summer, right?
Yes, I wanna.
You're going to Europe.
I'm going to Eastern Europe. Yeah, because I've been like it's really they're really my favorite. Like Eastern Central Europeans are really my favorite. So I thought, you know what, like let's do one for real. And
Just message me before you go, before you book your flight, so kind of just to confirm the cities, because there are some cities where guys go all the time, and I would say the most popular day game cities that guys go to in Europe are like some of them are complete shit, and that's it.
yeah, no,
Just
no, I know. I saw, and then I think you posted your schedule for this summer. So I was looking at it. I thought, oh, well, I mean, he might be in the same country I am this summer. So yeah, I definitely want to do that. And the reason
that will be
is,
in smaller cities. Will be in smaller cities.
yeah, no, no, I'll definitely text you. My first choice would have been Russian because my first ever girlfriend when I was a teenager was Russian, and ever since I was like, I was in love with Russian girls. But obviously, like right now, it's not the best time, and it's also
And
very expensive.
even if you wanted to go as a Canadian, especially, it's not a good idea, I think.
No, first of all, you need a visa as opposed to the rest of Eastern Europe. And the other thing is that yeah, because we're very, very pro Ukraine, I've heard stories of guys being turned back at the border in Belarus or Russia. It's like it's exceptional, but it still happens. And it's very expensive because there are less flights at the moment. So yeah, I looked at the flight to Moscow a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, I mean, the cheapest one was like $3,000, and then was up to $9,000. It was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And there are some like I've spoken to some guys who, when trying to leave the country, they got questions. Oh, why are you leaving? Everything's so good here. Where are you going? Are you sure you want to leave? So
oh yeah, no. There's an internet site from our government, from government of Canada. They strongly discourage people traveling there. It's like a big red flag. So but it would have been my first choice because yeah, they're my favorite.
so you've day gamed in a bunch of places. You've done all three big cities in Canada.
Yeah.
Which one do you like the most for day game? If you want to go kind of discuss that.
They all have their advantages. So Vancouver is the thing with Vancouver is that it has a similar weather as say Amsterdam or London. So it rains all year. It rarely snows. It doesn't get really cold. It's like above 0 degrees. So you can dig in pretty much all year. And the other thing is it's people there are very fit. And also Canada has different demographics depending on which city you are. So in the West Coast in Vancouver, it's a lot of Asians and a lot of blondes in tight yoga pants. So I'm not
Mm.
into Asians, but I'm really into like fit girls. So that's the thing. Toronto has is more brown, uh, Indian, and it's not my favorite because of the demographics. I'm really into white girls, but the thing is that it has big volume. And Montreal is I like it because there are a lot of Europeans, and it's not like there are less blondes, but there are a lot of Europeans. And the thing about Montreal is that I can dig in French, which for me is a huge advantage because, and that's a theory of mine. I think French-speaking girls respond better to verbal game, but I don't know if it's because I master the language better, if it's or if it's really a cultural difference. But I think they really respond well to guys with good verbal skills. So they all have their advantages, and also I think Vancouver and Montreal have better looking girls. Not as good as say New York City, but in my opinion, they have better looking girls than say Toronto. So
Okay.
Toronto would be my least favorite.
You've been to a bunch of to a few places in Europe, and I know you have some good adventures from Barcelona. Let's go into that story.
Yeah, so the reason I want to talk about Barcelona is that someone in the group chat this week posted something about night game being superior to day game because he was telling the story of one of his friends who had like two same day lays from night game. And I remember thinking, no, actually, this happened. It happened only once, but it happened to me once in Barcelona where I had two same day lays. And it's the only time it happened, but still, I remember that story. And so Barcelona, I was there because one of my roommates in Rotterdam was a Dutch girl, super friendly, and she invited me to Barcelona. So I went there for 3 weeks, and I had a bunch of other friends there. And I remember the first week. I can't remember if it was the second or third day. I was in. I don't. Have you been to Barcelona?
Yeah, I've spent a few weeks there.
Okay, so like I have like they have an architect called Antoni Gaudi, which I really like. I'm a huge fan of what he did. So in the morning, I remember going to Park Güell, and there were a lot of tourists. And I opened this Spanish girl, and it was a very romantic setting. It looked like a Woody Allen movie. So it was a flamenco guy playing guitar. The nature, the architecture was beautiful. I opened her, and I got her number. And then later on, there was this music festival that I wanted to go with my friends because I'm really big into electronic music. And the thing about this music festival is that they had something I never saw before is that the music festival was combined with a museum. So you could actually listen to a DJ, have a few drinks, and then you could go to the museum, see the exhibition, except you couldn't bring your drink inside. But I thought it was a great idea because I'm really into art, I'm really into music. So I remember at some point during the festival, one of my friends was like, we should get some MDMA, some ecstasies. I was trying to score some ecstasy, and I find this girl. I think she was from I forgot if she was from California or Seattle, but she was very friendly when I asked her about MDMA. And the more I talked to her, the more I thought, okay, this girl, she's doing a sabbatical in Europe. She's in her early 20s. She's at a music festival, and she knows some guys who can get me some ecstasy. I mean, it was written same day lay all over her place. Her face, sorry. So I was with her. She was, and the more we talked, the more I think, okay, this is doable. So I suggested going inside the museum because it was too loud outside. And yeah, we made out, and at some point, like things got really heated, and I fucked her inside the toilets of the museum because the thing is, most of the people were outside because they were listening to the music, and because we you couldn't bring drinks inside the museum, there were very few people inside, and the people who would have gone to the museum usually they didn't want to go because it was a loud music festival inside. So it was like perfect combination. There was almost no one in the museum except us two in the bathroom. We fucked. Uh, she eventually found some ecstasy, but it was really shit. Like we didn't feel anything, my friends. So at some point around 8 or 9, we left and we went for a dinner. And right after that, I had my date with this with this chick I met at Park Güell. And in the end, I brought her home. I forgot if I fucked her before or after midnight, but in my book, it's still the same day late because it was
It's still,
before.
yeah, it counts because
Yeah,
if you met
so
her
before.
the same day, it's the same. I count it as going to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah,
Oh no, actually, I I've thought about this because I've had the same situation.
oh yeah, it only
So
happened
it
to me
does count.
once. Okay,
Yeah,
it
me
always.
too. Only once. And the same one. Like the first one was a number close, then a same day late, then date with the number close, which ended as a late. In my case, it was when we woke up in the morning, but I still counted as a same day delay because she still didn't leave. And then for like, I think it counts for me.
Yeah, no, me too. My point is that it's still. I mean, it's very rare. It only happened to me once, but the point is that you can get some results with Daygame. But the thing is, I was in the right condition. If you're in vacation, you're a tourist, you're in a party city. I mean, Barcelona was fantastic. I didn't do a lot of day game, but the vibe there was it was so cool. It was I'd like to go back actually. It's just that it's I'm more into Northern Europeans, but they have a lot of German and Dutch tourists. I remember seeing some Russians. It's a great city, but I don't have a lot of experience other than those 3 weeks I spent there. But
If you're into Northern Europeans and you have decent game, and which you do, just go to Stockholm.
yeah, actually, there's some guys in the chat I really like. Like,
Yeah,
I think there's
we
some
have
stuff.
good guys from Stockholm in the chat, and I think there's one guy I've coached from Stockholm, and I've coached in Stockholm. So Stockholm, I think, is a great place if you know what you're doing. But that's if you know what you're doing. I think it might not be the easiest city in the world to start at, but if you know what you're doing, I think it's pretty dope.
Yeah, but in terms of personality, when I was in Netherlands, I met a lot of Polish girls, and I met a lot here in Canada, and I mean, when I was in Vancouver, and I also like, especially now because of what's happening in Ukraine, we have a big influence of Ukrainians and even Russians. And I really like their personalities much more. They're more feminine. So if I had to choose, because I don't have, I only have like 1 month vacation a year, and it's quite expensive to travel to Europe. Eastern Central Europe would still be my top choice, and why not Stockholm? But yeah, it's too culturally similar to Canada, in my opinion. Although they have
Yeah.
way hotter chicks.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's why kind of guys go to those kind of the few countries they go to, because if you're not able to travel a lot for day game, and that's one kind of like your first day game trips are usually going to be to the same place. Like it's going to be Poland, it's going to be Serbia, it's going to be Hungary, and maybe Prague. Like those are the first places guys are always going to go to, and I think it makes sense, and those are good choices if you're very limited with time, and also if budget is a kind of like a big limiting factor, then I would say yeah, like those places they're really good places. But then again, once you've been there, I think going back there is there's so many better places to go to. So what's your experience with gather game. Have you done any of that? Gather game being, to those who don't know, it's when you're approaching on a street, but it's kind of late at
Yeah.
night. Girls who are
So
coming out of bars, clubs, and stuff like that.
so here's the thing. When I started Daygame in Netherlands, I did a lot of that for one reason. I was friends with a couple of guys who were studying science, and one of the guy was actually Arabic, just like me. He was shorter than me, but he was extremely smart. I think he was studying medicine. I remember his school actually changed the rules so he could get in like before 18. He was like a very, very smart, and he was the first true alpha natural guy I've ever met. And I've seen this guy in night game. It was fucking amazing. And I've seen him doing day game. It was like, he never heard about game, about theory or anything, but like he was really, really good. So what I did was my first day game experience, if you want, in Netherlands was actually got a game because I was going with these guys, going out, and at the time I was a smoker. So the for me the favorite part was when I would go for a cigarette, ask for a light, and do and chat to a few girls, and I got a lot of lays from that. Either after the night was over or actually during the night. But the thing is, I never know like if I count that as day game or night game because it was outside the bar, but I was mostly direct because I always did better being direct. But I did a lot of that in Netherlands, like, and so actually, I think I stayed I remained a smoker for a couple of years simply because it was such a perfect excuse. Except when you have this, you ask for light. Sometimes there's a moron who offers you light. I remember this happening to me a couple of times. Like I asked for light to a few girls, and then there's a guy next to them. Oh, I have light. I was like, no, dude, you're not. I'd rather have light from them. So gutter game. I did it a lot while a smoker. I did that a lot in Netherlands, and but the thing is, with gutter game, with my experience, like numbers are shit. Like it doesn't matter if you have a number, you have to pull the same night, or it's not gonna happen. I didn't even bother asking for a number. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that
it.
was. So I don't know if you count that as gutter as night game or day game. So for me, the Gata game is like it's like it's a game. It's in between night game and day game. I never know where to put that.
Well, it's I think gather game. Like if we go into technicalities, then gather game would be when they're leaving the club and going somewhere, and then you're still on the street. But dude, who cares? At the end of the day, yeah, game is game, and I think the only discussion about what is better, day game, or because we had like a few days ago we had this conversation, what is better, like day game, night game, online, what is more efficient? And I was like, what the fuck is this conversation? I think if guys enjoy going out, being in this kind of environment, this high energy environment of clubs, if they can get in that good vibe, be that high energy guy, and they enjoy that, then they should be night gaming. Whereas
Oh, I
other people hate that. They really don't like the environment. They sleep at night. They're kind of living a more of a healthier lifestyle. And I think that's why a lot of guys choose day game. But again, I think it's a matter of personal preference, and that's it. And the only conversation to be had about what is better, I think, would be about what is better for learning game. Because if you're thinking about like everyone who, or at least guys who get to like a decent level, they, let's say a deacon level, like if they want to keep progressing, is even getting to a deacon level where, and not just 30 day game lays. Deacon is someone who has 30 day game lays, is a very good day gamer, giving very good advice in our chats, helping to keep the community kind of clean and nice, and make sure people are censoring all the posts and no one's being rude, and so to get to a really good level of day game, I think guys have to kind of start doing something else, not just the copy paste, lines and all the stuff that got them to the baby Casanova, to like their first 8 lays. That's you get there by being very structured. But if you want to become really, really good, you have to start experimenting with new things, whether that's a bar game or I don't know, like in the more stuff in the stores and more three sets, maybe even some night game, just so that you wouldn't be this one trick pony. Uh, and
Actually,
yeah,
no, so no, I wanted to now that you think no, so I could share a story of mine about Gato game in Paris, but what I wanted to share is something I haven't done myself, but one of my friend was doing. So, the city I live in right now, there was this strip club for girls. So it's I forgot the name in English, but it's like the naked guys dancing, and it's mostly girls. So what he would do is that he would wait that the club would close like 3 a.m. And all these girls were super horny because they spent the night seeing naked guys dancing in front of them. And then as soon as the club would close, he and his friend would go there and he would pick up girls. And like he had amazing results. I can testify because he was my roommate at some point. And he would scoop girls from that club as soon as they would leave, and he was I never tried it, so I can't testify to it yet, but I can tell that the guys was really efficient. Like he had this technique. Every Saturday he would go there, he would go for drinks with friends, and then later on he would like wait in front of that club at 3 a.m. and then he would scoop girls. And
I think it's a good idea. Why not? I mean, if you enjoy doing that, I think it's amazing. That's kind of part of the your journey as a whatever you call this, like a seducer or whatever you call this. Like it's you start with day game or wherever you. That's where it teaches you how everything works. You get enough experience so you would understand how women actually think, what works, what doesn't work. Like you get all the kind of you understand everything, kind of the basics, and then you start experimenting and you start looking for what do you like the most, what works for you, and then that's kind of around 30 lays or even after that. That is for really discovering what do you enjoy doing more, what is your environment, what is your kind of thing in game. And I think it's amazing. It's because otherwise, guys are one trick ponies and they get stuck at like 15 day game lays, and or they get stuck at like guys who are stuck at, let's say, one layout of 60 opens. It's usually because they're doing the same thing over and over again, and they're not kind of experimenting with new things, and they assuming they are already like their fundamentals are very very good. They never get to advanced level because they're one trick ponies who never try anything new, and they're too structured. That's the problem of structured day game. The guys keep doing it even when they are at like 20 day game plays. They still use the same copy paste lines. That's stupid a little bit.
yeah, but just like no, I agree with everything you said. The other thing I wanted to say is that I did a lot more night game when I was younger. I find it a lot harder now, mostly because I don't have as much as I only do day game solo. I hate wings. I absolutely hate doing it with wings. I tried it a couple of times, never worked for me. But night game is the opposite. I like to be with people, and I think night game when you're getting older is a lot harder. I find not only because you look older, but because you don't have a lot of people to go out with. Every time I had good results in night game, I was in a good mood with friends. So yeah, so I think age matters a lot in night game, a lot more than in day game, and I think it's more looks based than day game. I mean, looks matter for every kind of game, online, night game, and day game. But I think of all three types of games, I think day game is the one where you can get away with the least good looks, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, so one thing that you have done that most day gamers, for whatever reason, aren't able to pull off, and I think for day gamers it is a big exam about kind of have you developed into like have you stepped out of that one trick pony thing and have you learned many new things and dealing with different situations, etc. Is setting up a threesome, and I know you have a story about that.
yeah, but that was so the girl. So yeah, I have a story, but the threesome is a part day game, part night game because
Doesn't matter.
so yeah, I remember this is with one of my girlfriends. So I met her in an elevator. at the time, I had a regular that I met from Night Game, and I was she was living in a high rise building, like really like 20 plus stories. So I remember going to that regular, and when I got out, took the elevator, met this girl in the elevator, a French girl, and she was exactly my type, like tall. I'm 5'9". I which for the metric guys is 1 meter 75. So I like girls with between 1 meter 70 and 1 meter 80, and she was I think 1 inch taller than me. Exactly my type, blonde, blue eyes, and artistic. So we met in the elevator and we started chatting, and we exchanged numbers. And I texted her later on, no response. And then I think a month or 5 weeks later, I was visiting some friends in New York City, and she texts me back. She says, "Oh, it would be cool to meet." So I said, "Oh, as soon as I come back from New York, let's do that." So we started dating. I liked her very much, so made her my girlfriend. And then she revealed she was in a 5 year relationship with a girl before we dated. So, like, obviously, when she says that, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, this is perfect. Like, I won't even have to push her for a threesome. And as a matter of fact, she was open to the idea. But the thing is that it didn't happen overnight because we. So the first thing is that a lot of girls that she was hitting on, either they were either straight or bi, but they already had all the sausage they wanted. So the idea of a threesome didn't really appeal to them. So the problem I had initially is that she was able to pull a lot of girls, but not most of them were not interested in threesomes. So we tried ads online, but online quality is not as great. And then the other thing is that she was really into big boobs. Like that was her one thing. She said, I like girls with big boobs. So she was also very picky on top of that. And I remember one night we were in a bar, in a club actually, and then she starts dancing with this one girl, and I'm at a bar having a drink. I look at it, and it was like really nice to look at, and she starts making out, touching her boobs, and it was really on. And she brings her back to the bar. We have a quick chat, and this girl was open to the idea of a threesome. So we didn't like she didn't mention it like specifically, but she at some point I forgot if it was her or me. We said, "Oh, well, let's go home, have a quick drink." And then we had a drink, have a massage. Like I give my girlfriend a massage, we give the girl a massage, and then they started making out again, and it happened. So it was a lot of work. But I remember asking you in the chat about threesome, and you mentioned it's actually better to do it from your day game chicks, and actually that's true. I had it once. I think it was last month with two of my regulars, and I mean it's still a lot of work, but it took me less trial and error than the night game route, because I think the idea of having threesome with your regulars is they already like you, so it's a lot easier. So yeah, that was a one good advice I got from the group, thanks to you.
The only good advice from the group.
No, no, no. I had like so listen, I wanted to say something because the one of the main reason I joined the group, other than not being structured, is when you're in your 40s, I'm 47, it's really hard to find people to relate to. And and I think having being part of a group where other guys are doing the same thing is really helpful. Not necessarily for advice, but just because you're in the same mindset. I'll give you an example. When I was in Europe, I was surrounded by more artistic people, and when I got back to Canada, I got back to more. I bought a condo. I got back into more corporate life. And every time I go back to Europe in a more artistic situation, it puts me in a more creative mood. And it's the same thing with day game. If you surround yourself with guys who have kids, who are in your long-term relationships, and especially if you don't have any more people to go out with, it's really hard to keep the motivation. And one thing I got from the group is I read the chat in between sets. I got a lot of good advice, like starting an Instagram account. That was very good advice. And no, I had a lot of, and I remember you mentioned the coaching call initially. I remember reaching out to you about my logistics problem, and so yeah, I think one good advice I would give with for guys who are in their 40s is if you can be part of the group of a group with other like-minded people, it really helps for for the motivation. And yeah, the advice on top of that is great. But just having the motivation to do it because you have other guys doing the same thing is really crucial.
Let me ask you, by the way, because you have like 25 years of experience, so many day game lays, and then why did you get a coaching call? So what? Because I sometimes do coaching calls with guys who are like crazy advanced, and but the idea for them to do a coaching call was kind of, well, like they know they're on a very good level, but when they want to kind of throw shit at the wall and kind of shoot back and forth some ideas to help to figure out something, they don't really have day gamers of high enough caliber to do that with. And I know some guys do it for that. Why did you decide to get a coaching call with given how much experience you already had?
I had like a few questions I had for you. The main one was logistics because this is something I ran into a problem that is quite new for me. Is that I always had pretty good logistics. I always gamed next to the cool areas with good bars, and then during the pandemic, I bought a condo, and I wanted something specific. I wanted a loft, so it had to be industrial with high seating. So the city I live in, the one I could afford was pretty far from the center. And in summer, I was able to pull because I could do dates in a park. And in winter, I realized I lost a lot of lays because I was doing dates in a bar in the cool area. And then when the moment came to take a cab, I always fucked that part. So the logistics is a problem I never had before this year. So that was one of the main reasons. And the other thing is that I remember one other thing I asked you about, which you helped me with, is I I said I never had AA, which is true. I still have some AA with two sets. And I don't be and the reason I have AA is just I have less experience with two sets, and I really wanted to improve that part because the best looking girls I had in my life, most of them were from two sets. And it's not something it's still something I'm not comfortable with. So I remember the biggest reason I got a coaching call was with the logistic parts because I was like running into a problem I had no solution. So your advice really helped. Uh, and then I asked you a few questions about two sets, how I can improve my results. And I remember you said something about playing a role game with them. I forgot how you phrased it, but I was that was a really good advice. And the funny thing is that what I like about coaching call, and also when I read the data model, is that you said some things that I was doing right, like the role playing thing with two sets. Except I didn't know I was doing it right. Yeah, and so the thing with guys who are coaches and structured is that it's one thing to be able to do things right, but it's another thing to be able to identify the parts and to explain them. So I remember when you were telling me about two sets and I was thinking about my past success, I was like, oh, okay, this is why it worked because I was doing exactly what he said. And I don't know if it was you who said, oh, you have to be more playful when you're two sets and less rapport. And I was like, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah, that
right.
was
I
me.
mean, I was doing that when I was my good two set stories. It's exactly what I was doing. So I think the fact that you can precisely identify the part, um, it's very helpful because a lot of guys like me who are more intuitive guys, we do things, but we can't explain why we do them, and we can't teach them back. So I think, and it's the same thing with the logistics. Like we talked about seating a lot of things, and I realized, yeah, I'm doing this already. Maybe not as good as you explained it, but um, yeah. So I think the thing is, the most advanced guys in the gym sometimes they get advice from better guys. It's never it's really stupid to have a big ego and to think you can't learn from other guys. So no, for me, I'm always open to better guys. And to be honest, there are baby Casanovas in the group chat that I think are more advanced than I am.
There are some very
Because
good baby Casanovas. They're
yeah,
new to chat, that's why, and I don't know them personally. So
no,
I'm
no,
very,
you're
very
absolutely right.
careful with. I'm very careful with guys that I don't know personally and that have been there for just a few months. Because let's just
No,
say I
no,
made
you're
some people deacons in the past where I was like, well, shouldn't have done that.
no, no, you're absolutely right. But my point is that it's if you want to get laid, you put your ego aside. Like I know there's some guys in the chat, they keep doing the same things because you have so for instance, I suck at texting, and I listened to you texting advice, and it was actually very helpful because it's one part of my game where I'm really bad at. And and for me, there are a lot of guys who would benefit from putting their ego aside and then try to learn. And I know some deacons in the chat, they got some coaching like late in their career. Deacons that are more advanced than I am, and they still get some coaching because they got coaching from very advanced guys, or you or someone else. And I think it's yeah, you can always learn from other guys,
Yeah.
especially when you're not structured, especially when you're like me, you're intuitive, so you you know you're doing something great, but you just don't know exactly why. And yeah, and also it's the same thing when you write. When you write, you don't see your spelling mistakes, and then when someone reads what you wrote, it's easier for them to spot your mistakes because that phenomenon, right? Like you can write a
Yeah.
letter, you get so sometimes just having another one looking at your set is helpful. So yeah, I think coaching is beneficial, no matter what the level. And I think the
Yeah.
other thing is that I think something I like about you is that you're very honest. Like you're not gonna try to force people into getting. I remember the first time I contacted you, I was juggling with the idea of having a coaching session with you, and I remember you said, "Well, I think you're doing great already. You don't really need coaching. Maybe coaching would be better." And it was absolutely right because I know guys who got coaching and they reached out to me and I see their level and I was like, dude, have you learned anything? Like it looks like it was totally worthless. So yeah, no, coaching calls are a great thing. And it's not very expensive. It's no, I have to recommend that.
Yeah. No, the idea with coaching for advanced guys is like there's still a lot to learn for most people, but like if you look at how much value you're getting out of your money for anyone who's a deacon level, like they're gonna get so much out of a coaching call because they're gonna identify, let's say, 1 to 3 things. They're gonna figure out 1 to 3 things that they're doing that where they could really, really improve. Whereas during coaching, they would also identify a bunch of things they could improve. But if they are already advanced, I just don't think it's worth it, like and like just get coaching calls and like they're going to be beneficial, but one-on-one coaching with the price tag that comes with it, like I do think that for advanced guys, yeah, like calls are a better idea. For a beginner or an intermediate, it's definitely in field, but yeah. Anyways, so the next topic is starting 1, 2, 3. Now you are a deacon,
Oh,
so
really?
welcome to the gang. Just with great power, blah blah blah. Just when people don't kind of blur names and faces, just delete the posts, and if someone's uses the word bitch, warn them once and ban them. And if anyone posts any link to any other kind of coaches or whatever, then just ban them. But whatever. Yeah, welcome to the Deacon Club. So let me ask you one of those kind of serious questions that I like to touch it because different day gamers have different opinions. So future of your dating, is the plan to like game forever? Is there a plan of any ever kind of having like kids or anything like that? Kind of what's the dream for you?
That's a very good question. I tell you why. Because I was listening to Paul Janka a few weeks ago, a few months ago, and he was saying something that really yeah, that really hit something in me. He was saying like guys over 40 shouldn't shouldn't do day game. You should like yeah, or something like that. And I realized one thing that sets me apart from the other guys is that I never went full in. I always saw day game as a way to find a girlfriend. So for me, because for me, sex is always better with a regular or girlfriend. So I always, a lot of guys, and I don't think it's wrong, but a lot of guys they go full in, they do day game like really intense, and then at some point they want to, they want to go to a different level, a different, sorry, a different stage of their life. They want to have kids. The thing is, with me, it's just I have a lot of friends with kids and families, and I just like it's just not for me. And I broke up with a lot of girlfriends who were pushing to have kids. But for me, it's more. I don't see day game. I see it as uh, a part of your life, and the only difference when I get older, if I don't get into a very stable relationship, I'll just start gaming older girls. At the moment, it's just more efficient for me to game girls under 30. They respond better. But there's no yeah, there's no end game in the sense that you never I'm a very horny guy. I don't know if I have high testosterone. I don't think I do because I still have a full set of hair. I don't have a lot of chest hair, so I don't have all the signs of a high testosterone guy. Like usually high testosterone guy, they're bald guys and with deep voice, which I don't have. But I have a very high sex drive. Like that's one thing for me. And I remember reading an article about I forgot who posted it. It was maybe it was David Buss, but anyway, the guy was saying that women when they reach a certain age, like 40, and when they're in a stable relationship, the libido drops a lot, and this is something I cannot come to terms with. So my goal is to keep having regulars like I have, and also because you mentioned about the artistic guys having more fun. This is something I completely agree with. I was thinking about it the other day. I was talking to a friend of mine because I was in a metro. I saw this girl. Stopped at her stop. I approached her, had an instant date, and then went back in the metro to go back home. And then I saw this other girl. And I was thinking, how many guys my age have this fun life? Because it's really fun. That's the key part. I think maybe people forget about day game when they start because they want to get laid. They're not good with women or they want to get better. But it's fun, man. I had so many fun adventures all over the world. And to me, giving that away, it's I'm not ready for that. But however, I do enjoy relationships. Like I don't think I've ever had a girlfriend I regret having. Like uh, didn't always end well, but all my girlfriends were great girls. So you can do day game. I don't know as much as you want. I don't know. I'll stop when I won't be able to pull anymore, but I'm still able to do it. So and I was talking to another guy in the chat because something I noticed. So the age thing. It's not a problem for me yet, but I have, as of last year, I started noticing girls under 21 asking my age way more. And for me, when a girl asks how old you are, it means she thinks you might be too old for her. So just the fact that she asks is not necessarily a good sign. You can still get away with it. Like most of my, like all my regulars are under 30. Like one is 28 and the other two are under in their early 20s. And most of my, I don't think I've had one single lay last year from a girl over 29. But this guy I was talking to in the chat, he said, because he's in Poland, he said, yeah, Poland, they care less about age than say in the West. I don't know if he's in Poland. I think he lives in the West, but he's originally from Poland. But he said that in Russia, which is consistent with which with I observed, he said in Russia they care even less, and it's true. Like I had a lay last summer. The girl was 22. She was from Russia. She was fresh from the boat, and she was calling me shorty because I'm 175 and she was 180, and then she was calling me old man. And so, it was a shit test. But at some point, she reveals her ex-boyfriend was actually over 50, and I was 46 last summer. I'm 47 now, and she didn't give a shit. So I'm not saying it's true for every Russian girl, but I noticed that for a lot of them, at least here in the city I live in Canada, it's less of an issue than say Western girls. So my plan is, if it stops working here in Canada, I guess I'll do more day game trips in the East. But the thing with me is that I never really liked one night stands. Like my goal was always to get regulars. So the way I see day game is just an interview process for my regulars. So I currently have two solid regulars and the third one who's on rotation. So the third one, I consider her like she's on probation. Let's say if I find someone better for the position, I'd replace her. But the point is that I always liked girlfriends or regulars much more than one night stands. For me, like fucking a girl and not seeing her again, it's a lot of effort for that's not
Yeah,
what I'm. But again, it's only it's a preference.
that's
Uh,
not how threesomes happen.
no, I agree. But the point is that the best sex I always had was with girls I've seen more than once.
No,
So
no, that's
that's
exactly what I meant. That's exactly what I
yeah.
meant. If you sleep with someone once, then well, that's not how you get a threesome with her.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I see your point. No, exactly. My point is, so this is what I was debating with the guy because I was telling him like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do a day game trip, but all my abroad day game experience was in places where I lived because that's where I look for. I look for regulars and connections, and I just have I have great connections with my regulars. One of them is actually an ex-girlfriend. We stopped dating because I wasn't into the monogamous relationship, and we broke up, and then she came back. But yeah, it's so that's the reason I haven't done real dedicated day game trips because it's I was always looking for the same thing. So yeah, that's the plan. The plan is to keep going as long as I can. Kids, I can't say I don't want kids, but every time I had to give an answer to a girl, I was like, shit, no, I don't want that. It's not that I don't want kids. It's just that I have friends with kids, and yeah, it's not a fun life, but they're very happy. I don't think there's a good answer for that, but that's why when I mentioned the Paul Janka interview about, he was talking about his new life with a family, with kids, and how day game for guys over 40 was, he didn't think it was a good thing. He's right for someone who wants a family and someone who's being going all in, because he was very intense. Like he was like doing. He was doing this full time, which is not my case. I have a full time job. So yeah, for me, it's just a way of life. It's a really fun hobby. It's fun. It's hard for me to say it's over.
I think
So
that different guys have different priorities and they need different solutions. I don't think it's a good idea to say, "Oh, God, dating for guys over 40 is not a good idea," or everyone should only day game and fuck relationships. I think there are different guys want different things, and then the question is, how do you get what you want? Whether that's a relationship, whether that's just day gaming forever, whether that's a relationship where you're still day gaming, or so I think that's the interesting journey, not just saying, oh, everyone should do this or everyone should do that. No, that is absolutely not the case. And I was just
sorry.
curious in how you see it, but I really think that like, guys can figure out what they want and what to do about it.
Well,
So
sorry, but one more thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I have a lot of guys around my age, either like late 40s or early 50s or early 40s, and a lot of them they break up and they're like they don't know what to do because they're not in their prime anymore, or like they're not in their 20s or 30s. So the thing is that in our environment, especially in the West, chances of you not having the same girl all your life are quite high. So it's better to see yourself. Like for me, dating is for life because the the chances for me being with the same girl for the rest of my life are pretty slim, given the
yes.
dating market in the West. So yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Nothing. Yeah, I kind of see your point and agree. So we do have a few stories left, but I think there's so much stuff left to talk about that we could leave those stories for another time.
Sure.
Because you have your Amsterdam story, and I'm sure you have a lot of other stories. And I think another interesting conversation we can have is a whole conversation about managing regulars, kind of how to pick regulars, how to stop seeing them, and maybe how to set up threesomes with them and everything else. So, but we can do that another time. We're already like over an hour, so let's let the guys
Digest.
go out on Daygame instead of just listening to us. And let's do this another time and find out some more topics we can cover. And especially the regular thing, I think, is an interesting topic, given that you also have a lot of experience with regulars and you prefer seeing regulars instead of just sleeping with random girls all the time, which is kind of I very much see that point, especially like having two regulars and then having the kind of the third spot, which is like rotating and regulars come and go. So um any last wishes, anything like that, any last comments before we wrap up this time?
Um, I think one thing I wanted to mention, I don't, we don't have time for the story, but I noticed something very common with guys in Canada or in feminist countries is that they start super nice guy, and then when they realize that doesn't work, they go to the extreme opposite. They become uber douchebags, like and it's still better than nice guys. And then eventually they come back in the middle because it's better to be a douchebag than to be a nice guy. But when you're a douchebag, you're not gonna get the top super hot classy girls with good self esteem, in my opinion.
Where
So
do
I
you
think
find those?
no, no, but my point is that
Who the
it's
fuck has
something.
good self-esteem and is classy? Including guys and men and women.
No, but my point is that it's something I observed a lot with guys around me. Like they discover later at some point that being a nice guy doesn't help, and then they become super douchebag. And the thing with me, and again, we don't have time to talk about it, but the fact that I was raised in a Muslim family, I always was afraid to be perceived as a misogynistic pig. So I was very careful not to be too much of a douche because I didn't want to fit the stereotype. So that was kind of an advantage, and I think anyway, like it's hard for you maybe to understand because you come from a different country, although you have experience in lots of countries, but it's something that I see over and over with guys in Canada, in guys who were raised in feminist countries. They discovered nice guy doesn't work, and they go to the other extreme until they realize, oh, maybe I don't have to go that hard into the douchebag role. So yeah, food for thought. We can
I
develop that later.
that is actually when guys learn day game, they go into this kind of the darker side of game, kind of being a douchebag, the way you pointed, the way you call it. That's actually very common for almost everyone who gets good at game. They do have that douchebag phase, and guys, I think it's very important. It's beneficial to go through that, and then you kind of learn to calibrate. You go from too nice to too bad, too nice to too bad, trying to find a balance. But I think that the thing that happens at the end, guys learn to calibrate, and then they know when to be super nice and when to be a little bit more of a douchebag when that's a better idea based on what you see from girl and how she's behaving. So you just learn how to behave with different people, and that's a good takeaway. But that's a fairly advanced thing, that like a conclusion that guys that have a lot of experience come to. Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
Mr. Joe, thank you
All
for
right.
joining us,
Yeah, that was fun.
and see you in the chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna go day game right now, actually. So
Boom.
yeah, and again, I love reading the chats when I day game in between sets. It's fun. It's really fun thing. So it's very motivating. So joining this group just for that is a good reason. Anyway, have a good day.
Good luck out there.
Cheers. Bye.
That's it for this time, guys. If you want to join our group chat, then a link to do that is in the description. And if you want to go through the same texting courses that Joe went through to improve his texting, then head over to daygamecourses.com to check out my free texting course. And if you want to join me for some day game in Portugal, Riga, Latvia, or some second tier cities in Poland, then the link to find out all about coaching is in the description. That's it for this time. See you guys in the next podcast episode. Ciao.